I wanted to wear this red shirt because it's vampires and blood, but I just kind of feel like I work at Red Robin. Oh yeah, there we go. There's the look. Yeah, I look like fucking Deacon Frost. Hello, my name is Jackson McMurray, director of Blade 2. On this episode of Study in Marvel, we're talking about Blade 2, which is the first ever Marvel sequel. This means that for once, I don't have to spend 6 minutes of my video explaining the comic book backstory of the character we're talking about. If you haven't seen my video on Blade 1, here's the broad strokes. Blade. Half vampire. Hates vampires. Kills vampires. His only defining characteristic is how much he hates and kills vampires. After Blade 1 was a critical and commercial success, which will never not be baffling to me, New Line Cinema started to gear up to create a sequel. Stephen Norrington, the director of the first movie, was for whatever reason unavailable, so the producers decided to hire young up-and-comer Guillermo del Toro. It's 2000 and Guillermo del Toro isn't really Guillermo del Toro yet. This is before Pacific Rim, before Pan's Labyrinth, before Hellboy even. He was a natural choice though, because Blade 2 wasn't even his first vampire movie. Kronos was Guillermo del Toro's feature-length debut, and it tells the story of a man in search of a machine that would grant eternal life to whoever holds it. But that eternal life comes at a terrible cost. A terrible blood-sucky cost. It's something like that. It's vampire-y. I was too lazy to watch it. I already had to watch Blade 2 like 3 times. Cut me some slack. Calling Blade 2 a Marvel comic book movie is a little bit of a stretch, to be honest. With the first movie's villain Deacon Frost dead, this story is populated almost entirely by totally original characters. It's also not really adapting any specific story from the comic books, so really the only similarities between the two stories are just that a guy decided he wanted everyone to call him Blade, and there's vampires also. I'm not a huge fan of Guillermo del Toro just by default, so believe me when I say that this movie is 100 times better than the original in every conceivable way. I'm talking acting, I'm talking cinematography, I'm talking action choreography, special effects, character work, number of Ron Perlmans in it. Like every conceivable metric by which you can judge a movie, Blade 2 is just better. So we open on this super sketchy blood bank where this super sketchy guy is trying to give blood. It's super clear that this whole place is run by vampires, and the whole time you're thinking of this guy, you're like, what are you doing? Get out of there! You're gonna get vampired! But then it turns out that that's what he's counting on. He attacks all the vampires, and he sucks their blood. He sucks the vampire's blood. So this guy is a Reaper. It's the next step in the evolution of the vampire virus. Just like vampires feed on people, Reapers feed on vampires, and they feed a lot more aggressively and a lot more often. Because they're so hungry and they're so hard to kill, their numbers are growing very fast, and it has the vampires very scared. The vampire leader named Damaskinos, who's a lot more of a traditional vampire than we're used to seeing in these. He's got pointy ears, and he wears a robe, and he's super pale, and he doesn't look like he went to see Matrix Reloaded on opening night.
And after anxiously awaiting the sequel, some Atlanta fans are a little out of this world.
He decides to turn to the one person he knows who's better at killing things than anybody else. That's right, it's Blade. So, my biggest criticism of the original movie was its weirdly black and white, like, vampire bad, people good morality system. And, you know, also the boring story, flat characters, ugly color grading, and lazy action choreography. But mostly the morality stuff. Like, even when people Blade knew were getting turned into vampires, he was still always like, oh yeah, they gotta die. Like rest in peace, Jeremy, it's over for you. This movie tries really hard to play with that in its own sort of way. Most of our protagonists in this movie are vampires, and because they're the victims of this story, we build a little bit more empathy with them than we did in the first. There's also some interesting stuff regarding Whistler. Right at the beginning, they reveal that Whistler didn't actually die near the end of Blade 1, he just got turned into a vampire. And when Blade sort of rescues him, he talks to him as if he's like become a different person since he became a vampire, which is an interesting take on the situation.
If there's anything left of you in there, Whistler, listen up. In the morning, those blinds are going to open. Whether you're cured or not.
It makes it seem more like there's something that is inherently evil about vampirism. Like, when you're turned, you turn into a totally different, totally more sinister person, which is definitely, like, a lot more explanation than the first movie gives for this idea. So anyway, Blade just cures Whistler with, I don't know, I guess the serum they invented at the end of the last movie. It's not super clear. It doesn't matter. Whistler's not a vampire anymore. It's totally, everything's Gucci with him.
I'm giving him an accelerated retroviral detox.
But then he comes back to the lab and learns that there's this new kid named Scud who's taken his place. They get in a big fight about car modifications right away, and it establishes this really fun character quirk of his that he always has Powerpuff Girls on in the background while he's working on things, which I think is great. I don't know. It's like, I think that's like the 2001 equivalent of being a brony. This is the first part of the movie where it becomes really, really clear how much more characterized all of these people are. They feel like real people with real conflicts between them a lot more than just like props to move the boring bad plot along like they did in the first movie. I'm sorry I'm being so much more harsh on Blade 1 than I actually was in my video about Blade 1, but I just like Blade 2 so much better, and it makes me realize how much I don't like Blade 1. Anyway, so these vampire gymnasts just swing into the lab, and Blade sees him, and he tries to kill him, because he's Blade, that's what he does. And we get what is easily the best action sequence in this entire, like, franchise. Eventually, though, these vampires sort of call a timeout and say, oh, wait, we come in peace. We're just here to see if you want to come over and help us. And Blade says yes. He goes over to Damaskinos' house, and there we're introduced to Ron Perlman and Donnie Yen and like 5 other new vampire characters. Like, way too many new vampire characters. And it's revealed that this vampire hit squad was put together explicitly to hunt down and kill Blade, but now they've got to team up with him to fight the Reapers. But Blade didn't come without a backup plan. He's got like a shit ton of explosives in his duster. And then he attaches this explosive device to Ron Perlman's giant head just to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Kind of like they did in Suicide Squad. Remember when they did that in Suicide Squad? So everybody's all teamed up, and we move on to the staple of the Blade franchise, which is the nightclub scene. This scene really highlights the visual differences between these two movies. Blade 1's nightclub scene was all black and white and dark red. But check out all the different colors in almost the same scene in Blade 2.
He's got you.
God, this 15-second clip has more style and character to it than the entire first movie of the series. Not to mention that Blade 2's whole vampire aesthetic is a little bit less Avril Lavigne and a little bit more Marilyn Manson, which I think is definitely a positive change. And here's just an extra joke that I thought of that I don't have any good way to naturally segue into.
So they're finally here, performing for you. If you know the words, you can join in too. Put your hands together if you wanna clap as we take you through this funky rap.
So throughout this story, we find out that silver and garlic have no effect on the Reapers. But Blade tries out the gnarly vampire juice from Blade 1. Oh, that wasn't so bad. Only sunlight can kill them. But that doesn't stop every character from emptying just round after round after round of what I presume to be hugely expensive silver bullets at any one of these whenever one shows up. Anyway, there's a ton of action, Doofenberg takes a bath in some blood. There's this Reaper autopsy scene that's super gross and beautiful and awesome. Wesley Snipes just really earning his paycheck in this one.
You obviously do not know who you are fucking with.
Anyway, eventually... Oh, what time is it? It's plot twist o'clock? All of the vampire kill squad are dead, except for Ron Perlman and Dagwood's hot daughter. And we find out that the Reapers weren't just a natural virus, they were created and designed by Dennis the Menace himself. And we find out that that first Reaper from the blood bank was not only Patient Zero, but also his son. And Ron Perlman's been in on it the whole time. And hey, now what time is it? It's still plot twist o'clock. The clock is broken. It's stuck at plot twist o'clock. Scud was Despacito's familiar the whole time. And that doesn't really have anything to do with the story. It just means that Whistler's suspicion of him earlier is confirmed in some way later. Oh, and that's also why Blade doesn't just blow up Ron Perlman's giant head. It's because Scud rigged that explosive device from earlier. Him and Blade get in this huge fight that you've been waiting for the whole movie. And at the end of it, Blade just, like, fucking cuts him in half. He cuts him in half, like hot dog style, not hamburger style, like up and down. Blade and Whistler destroy the whole laboratory, and after one of the best fight scenes in the whole movie, Blade finally kills the last Reaper, ending things once and for all. But what's this? Dorcas's hot daughter was fatally injured in the fight. She says she wants to see the sunrise before she dies. And Blade takes her outside and she gracefully wisps away, like November leaves off of a proud oak tree. Just like has always happened, vampire deaths have always been very quiet and very dignified. So is this a new day for Blade? Has this beautiful woman taught him that all life is valuable, and that we should be judging others not by the intensity of their bloodlust, but by the content of their character?
Well, you didn't think I forgot about you, did you?
No, I guess not. So if you're looking for an introduction to Blade, start here, Blade 2. And you can probably end here too. I think that's really all you need. You can read the last 6 or so issues of Avengers. They've got Blade in them, and they're pretty good. I like them. Blade 2 is colorful, it's well choreographed, and it's filled with fun characters, and that's really all that I think you need in an action movie. I said that Blade 1 was fun to watch, but that's only true in an ironic kind of way. Blade 2 is fun to watch in a really genuine way. Blade 2 is just a genuine blast. It's everything that I think an R-rated blockbuster should be. Sure, it's cheesy, but it's not cheesy at the expense of the things that make a movie a good movie. And speaking of, the next movie in this video series is going to be Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. That's right, we finally made it. Buckle up, because I've got a lot of things to say about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Like always, if you want to hear more from me talking about movies that are not superhero movies, my podcast, No Nerds Allowed, that I do with my sister, is right here on this channel. Every week that I'm not uploading a study in Marvel, we're uploading one of those. Adeline and I have a handful of different projects that we're thinking about starting up in the near future. So if you want to find out when those happen, go ahead and subscribe and you'll be the first to know. You know, go ahead and do your thing. Subscribe. So that's that. I'll see you next time for Spider-Man. Come back here. I'll come back here and I'll tell you about Spider-Man. Alright, that's all I got. I'll see you next time.